I tried to get that shot of those guys standing up in the back of the pickup truck. Because we're in Mexico now. And if I thought I was shedding the middle class by traveling for 3 years in a camper van throughout rural America, and finally a year in Texas, that was like nothing compared with hanging out with poor people in Mexico. And my first 2 weeks in Mexico were spent among the middle class, all around the Hampton Inn in downtown Victoria. But now for 11 days I've been living in my camper van, which is broken down and being repaired in that bay right there with the orange sweatshirt hanging off it. That's my van right there. Some parts of the engine are being completely retooled. Big job that no way I could have afforded with a licensed mechanic in the US. So, what does it say about me around class that I've lived in a camper van for 3 years? My son is humiliated, said to me, "Great, my dad is living in a car." It's been great for me. It's been astonishingly good for me, and the life of travel has been really good. Because I was in a really progressive, hip, artsy town, Asheville, North Carolina, right on the spine of the Blue Ridge Mountains. But what I've learned from leaving that town where I thought I would live forever is that ain't all there is. I went back to Chicago and relished my heritage as a working class, gritty Chicagoan. Then went to New Orleans, black influenced city, 70% black, and got even way happier then. And I was routinely saying, wow, when I got to Asheville in 2004, people would say, "You're so Asheville, so funky and hip and alternative." Well, I'm way more New Orleans because black culture has influenced me so much in my life. Had a blast in New Orleans. Laissez-les, bon temps roulé is the only French I picked up in that very French-influenced town. Let the good times roll. And that's my way. I like having fun. I'm all about fun. Living really close to the earth. Emily Post was a icon of my youth. She taught you how to act middle class, what forks to use and stuff like that. I, over the course of 3 years of living in the van, found forks and spoons and stuff helpful for eating some food, but really not a very efficient way to eat a lot of food. And one of the musical influences on me through this whole period has been a guy whose name I remember. He's a world beat singer who sings. He's a peace, love, and freedom guy who's influenced me an awful lot, but I'm not pulling up his name right now, who likes to sing. One of his seminal lines is, "I eat with my hands like an African soldier." Well, I prefer to eat with my hands. And guess what? I just had lunch with the workers around the table over there. Pretty fabulous Mexican meal. And they don't use silverware. They don't use plates. They don't use napkins. No, you pick up a tortilla, put some stuff inside of it, roll it up, and eat with your hands like a Mexican soldier. I don't know. But I loved it. I had such a good time, even with my very limited Spanish. They were so forgiving, and I had enough to make conversation. I'm happy here. I'm way happier now than I ever was living in a subsidized senior apartment building. I recognize the sound of that earth mover. My hearing has gotten very attuned, and that guy went the other way about an hour ago. And I recognized the sound of that vehicle a long time before it got here. Because I'm listening to the sounds, I don't 3 years in the country, in the mountains of Appalachia for a year, and then rural Kentucky and rural Louisiana and the Gulf Coast of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Not so many sounds. You're not so besieged by sounds as in the cities. So sounds stand out more and you pay more attention to them. And the rallying cry I learned from Appalachians. At first, way up in the mountains of Appalachia, the sound of a motorcycle gang rolling into the little hamlet where I was hanging out was intimidating to me. But one day I went out on a Saturday, and there was a bunch of middle-class guys from the city who were out for a big joyride on Saturday. And they were a whole lot of the Appalachian guys that I had talked to had given up their motorcycles in their 40s because they were settling into their marriage and raising kids, and it seemed dangerous. So I said to the leader, obviously, of that group, you guys are still up on your bikes at 60 and 70. What's the secret? And he said, he didn't bat an eye. He said, pay attention to everything. And that's clearly the secret to be safe on a motorcycle or driving a vehicle. Don't be texting. No, don't be texting. Pay attention to everything. Everything, everything, everything. And that's driven me in so many ways. I'm not sure there's more I want to say. How much more am I going to shed the middle class? Well, I still know how to play the game. God knows, I got a PhD and worked for AT&T. I can play that game. And around the hotel, I did. But it's clear to me that that's playing a game, and that all the time I've spent with homeless people along the road and even back in Asheville has shaped me a lot. Survival. Survival has been an issue in various places, broken down in odd places, and total of 9 days being out of the van altogether, not having access to it, and being genuinely on the street. Taught me a lot. Having a dog all through that process helped me to not go purely into survival, because I always had another being that I had to consider. So it's not me first, it's not me only. I have to survive, because if I don't survive, my dog doesn't survive. But more and more, as I have identified with the people who in the U.S. and America, the game is rigged against the people. The game is very much for the rich. Getting worse all the time. I heard a statistic on the radio that the gap between rich and poor since the COVID hit has gotten dramatically more. And that's happening around the world. So I know where I identify. My people are the peasants, are the Mexicans, are the poor whites and poor blacks. Yeah, and the dogs. One of my other big musical, Michael Franti. That's who I was looking for before, Michael Franti, Franti. One of my other big musical influences is a guy named Nahko, Nahko, and Medicine for the People, and his themes are much the same. And he talks about being a guardian of the people. And I've become a very outspoken guardian of all dogs and all children, and will routinely say to someone, no, you don't own that kid. No, it's not going to work with me for you to say, I own this kid, because you don't own that kid. And yes, I can interrupt you and say, if you hit that kid, you answer to me. And I have said, if you hit that dog, you're going to deal with me, because I'm a guardian of all dogs. Yeah. So, is it a straight line? I don't know if it's a straight line or through line, but I do feel like it's been my karma my whole life. Yeah, I do.